Even though we always say that it's not the heroes but the users, there's no denying that there are definitely some heroes that just have a slight advantage over others, which is what the meta is all about. So in today's video, I will mention the top 15 best hero for solo ranking for the current meta. If you need their builds or some tips or tutorial on how to play some of these heroes mentioned here, I will include the video links for them in the video description. And with that being said, let's start with the list. Despite Hayabusa getting a few nerfs here and there, he is still considered one of the strongest assassins in the game, and has been very consistent with this title. His best attributes are that he can farm extremely quickly, be able to one-shot most squishes, and most importantly, be able to get away quite easily. Just make sure that your second skill lands on top of the target, and before you dash in, use the first skill first so you can do the combo more smoothly. Just beware of heroes like Ling and Lancelot, because those two can mute his ult. Also, it seems like people like to pick Saber to counter him, but when you see him being picked, just build one defensive item and you'll be able to sustain his one-shot ult. Lapu Lapu is one of those few fighters who can truly hard carry in the EXP lane, even in solo rank. He is incredibly tanky, has ton of dashes and crowd control skills, and also deals an insane amount of damage. If you have ever faced or had an ally who has completely mastered this hero, you know what I'm talking about. He's almost unstoppable in the right hand. Always try your best to target the backline first, because once their main DPS are dead, it becomes extremely hard for the enemies to kill you anymore. Obsidia is either a hit or a miss, and is very user and item dependent. In the early game, she's really weak, especially during the team fights, but once you manage to get a few of her core items and max out her passive, the power spike goes through the roof. It's day and night. I used to build her with Trinity build, but after a few more tries, I recommend building her with critical build. You just deal a lot more damage. She is also great against heroes that rely heavily on their dashes, so if you see one, maybe heroes like 1-1, Granger and so on, you might really want to pick this marksman. Fredrinn is one of the few tanks that can still be played as a jungler and does exceptionally well even in solo rank. If you see that your team pick a support as the roamer and doesn't have a good frontliner, then you might really want to consider picking a more tanky jungler, and Fredrinn is a great choice to fulfill that role. Akai and Ixia are probably the other ones who could do that fairly well as well. He works even better when you can team him up with Fredrinn, because with this duo, he truly becomes almost unkillable. I recommend playing him quite aggressively right from the start, especially if the enemy's jungler is quite weak in the early game. You want to gain a huge advantage as early as possible. Lancelot is one of the most frustrating heroes to deal with, since he can just sing his way to his opponent's badlines, and then sing his way out. A good Lancelot can literally hard carry the game on his own, especially if the opponents don't have many crowd control skills, but even then, with good timing, he can just immune it. But it's extremely important to learn not to waste his first skill, and make sure to land it on a target, because that's where his main strengths come from. It might take a little bit of practice, but once you have mastered this mechanic of his, you will feel like most of the heroes are extremely slow in comparison. Except a few heroes, like Fanny of course. Ixia is probably one of the best marksmen at completing turn the tile battle with just one properly timed ult. It doesn't matter if your team was getting completely wrecked throughout the whole game, but at the end, if you have managed to get all her core items, her late game damage can easily destroy absolutely everyone, and all you need is one crucial ult to change the outcome of the game. Just make sure to keep farming, and if you die quite a lot in the early to mid game, never stop farming and do whatever you can to farm those core items. Also, make sure that you don't start the teamfight with your ult, because the enemy will easily escape from it, so wait for the right timing to do it. Kagura is one of those mages that you can say can always be in the meta, just for the simple fact that I don't think she has a true counter, and you can say that she has the whole arsenal because she can CC instantly burst squishes, has a dash skill, and on top of that, can easily escape danger with her free purify skill. But she does require some practice to get used to all her skills and combos, and how to time her skills to make sure that her whole combo connects. A lot of the time you will see that some Kagura can deal an insane amount of damage after her full combo, and then you see others that barely do any damage because they don't fully connect the whole combo. But once you completely master her, you will see that she can truly be played in every single lineup. Aamon got a lot of buff here and there, and after his latest buff, I think he's even stronger than ever before. I always rated Aamon's extremely high, seeing he can clear the jungle really fast, can burst almost any heroes, even the opponent's tanks, and has a really good mobility. And it seems like more and more people are finally starting to realize how insanely strong this jungler is, and now from time to time you will see people banning him. But like any assassin, time is crucial. Most of the time you want to target the opponent's main damage dealer first, so you gotta be a bit patient during a full team clash. But thanks to his camouflage, getting to the opponent's backline won't be that difficult. Joy's mobility, fast clearing, and extremely short ult makes her ideal for solo players, since you won't have to rely too much on your teammates to get things done. Like if you want to steal the opponent's buff, you can easily do it in the blink of an eye, and with very little risk. And most importantly, no need to request for your teammate's assistance to do it, since in solo rank, more often you won't get the cooperation you will want. The best thing about Joy is that you can move around the map so quickly, get into the enemy's backline in a flash, and then get out as quickly. If Mobile Legends ever have a collaboration with DC, she should definitely be the Flash. Zhong is arguably the strongest or one of the strongest EXP fighters. If you know how to proc his passive consistently and combo his skills, you will easily be able to dominate your lane against absolutely any EXP heroes in the game. And if your counterpart got cocky and you won the early skirmishes, then you can even freeze the lane to gain even more advantage. If you become a one-trick Zhong user and completely master all his mechanics, you will most likely never lose your lane and will always be the opponent's biggest threat. You really gotta take advantage of his insane damage right from the start of the game to truly shine, so always have that aggressive approach in every single game. When taking the neutral objective, just use his ult to summon the enemies or your team take care of the objective. But if the opponent decide to fight, then go for the main DPS, and you can pretty much one-shot most of their squishes with full combo with Petrify. Zhong is truly one of the strongest EXP in the current meta. Eve seems to keep getting buffed and nerfed in almost every single update, but in her current form, she is considered one of the strongest mages in the current meta, even for solo rank. She might seem quite lackluster at first, since she doesn't have a skill with an insane burst damage, but if you know how to play the poking game with her first skill, you will see how annoying and strong she actually is. You can pretty much outpoke and out-harass any mage in the game, and during team fights, her ult is insanely strong. Whenever I just want to completely dominate the game as a mid laner, this mage is usually my go-to. You can't pretty much go wrong picking this mage, she's solid in almost every single lineup. Despite her lack of mobility skill, if you master her, you will see that that's not truly a problem, because her first skill gives her plenty of movement boost, and her second skill can slow down the enemies quite a lot. Grock is one of the few roamers who can truly do a lot even as a solo player, because of how much he can disrupt the opponent's jungler, how much chaos he can create during the team fights, how tanky he is, and even how much he can deal damage despite building him as a full tank. There are only very few heroes who can do all this, and Grock is one of them. So if you're ever forced to play the roamer role, but you still don't want to feel like you're so dependent on your team to secure the victory, then Grock should be at the top of your list to have a lot more success at climbing solo rank. Kadita is one of my favorite mages to play when I see that the opponent's jungler is not a tanky type, But even then, she can still one-shot even some of the sturdiest heroes in the game, especially after she gets a few of her core items. And if she can one-shot tanky heroes, imagine what she can do against most mid and gold lanes. Her biggest counter is probably Purify, but remember that her ult has a much lower cooldown than Purify, so if the opponent thinks that can save them all the time, then they are pretty much very mistaken. But probably the one mage I don't find that fun to go against is when they have a Kagura, since she can escape quite easily from Kadita's full combo. But if that's the case, just target anyone else. Jin Sushi is considered one of the strongest junglers in the current meta, and even more so in solo rank, seeing he can fulfill 2 roles at a time. He can clear the jungle extremely fast, has a lot of mobility, can immune CC skills if you time his dash properly, can poke afar with his second skill, and can deal an insane amount of AoE damage with his ult. His skills seem more for like an assassin than a marksman, but he basically attack hit as hard as marksman. He's just insanely strong. But ideally when your team picks Songxing, it will be wise to pick a non-marksman as the gold laner, or else your team might be too squishy during a full team clash. There are plenty of great gold laners that are non-marksmen, such as Sisi, Lunox, Esmeralda, Guinevere, etc. Granger is such an amazing marksman, especially for solo players, because he's not as weak in the early game and can handle himself pretty well, so you won't have to completely rely on your team's support, something that's quite the luxury in solo rank. His skills allow him to poke so hard against your counterpart, and his mobility allows him to survive a lot longer. His first skill is the best way to poke the enemies, but remember that you can always cancel it midway when your shots are missing, and then change to the right direction. Also, make sure to last hit minions so you can keep farming his passive. The more stacks, the more you can shoot his first skill and ultimate. There are some other very strong heroes like Freya, Sisi, Ling, Nolan, Arlott, Clint, Claude, Benedetta, Uranus, Glue, and Fanny. And Sora gets banned most of the time, so I didn't include him here. Any of the mentioned heroes can easily be included in this list, so if you have mastered any of them, you can still easily climb with these heroes. Anyway, that's it for this list. Of course, there's no denying that some matches are almost impossible to win because of certain external factors outside our control, such as the extremely unbalanced matchmaking, teammates lagging, or just trolling and whatnot. But one thing that you can control is how you perform in each game, and the better you perform, the higher chance you can be the difference maker and hard carry your team to victory. Good luck to all of you in your solo adventure. See ya.